Indonesia is a Southeast Asian country that is known for being the biggest archipelago in the world with many ancient artifacts and popular tourism locations. Indonesia is also known to be the fourth most populated country in the world. All of 17,000 islands in Indonesia are scattered along the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, which takes up 1,904,569 kilometers square of land. Most of Indonesia's population can be found in five main regions in Indonesia, which are Sumatra, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Java, and Irian Jaya. In the years 1800, Indonesia's crude birth rate had started out pretty average with 42.2 births every 1,000 population, and this stayed constant for almost a whole century. Until in 1885, when there was a sudden leap into 45.3 births per 1,000 people. But after the sudden leap, the CDR eventually decreased down slowly. In 1905, when the CDR starts to make bigger drops, it had another rapid leap in 1907. Starting year 1950, just after 5 years of Indonesia's independence, Indonesia's crude death rate is very low. It started off with 22.1 deaths. By the time it was 1979, the CDR in Indonesia has dropped by a little more than half in just 29 years. In the year 1995, the death rate had fallen to 7 deaths every 1,000 people, and from there the death rate plateaued for 20 years, which comes to the most current CDR in 2015, which is 7.1 deaths every 1,000, until in 1907, when there was a rise and people had 6.2 children on average. But with having more children, there were consequences like not enough food and water for everyone or lack of medicine for one child is sick, and the disease may spread in the whole household. In the next 12 years, the fertility rate dropped to 4.21 children on average per woman, which with less children, there was another soar in 1920 and another one in 1950. This was just 5 years away from the independence year, which probably meant people were able to raise more children with freedom. But soon around 1987, the fertility rate started to sink towards 2 to 3 children per woman. This is due to the introduction to contraceptives and a new slogan that was advertised, which is 2 is enough. The most recent fertility rate recorded in 2015 is 2.28 children per woman. Since 1800, the child mortality rate had been high at 444 children dying every 1,000 newborn. This number stayed constant until 1927, when there was a decrease. But then the number increased again in 1941, when the Japanese came and invaded Indonesia. When the Japanese left and Indonesia was an independent country, the child mortality rate dropped rapidly, and in 70 years, the child mortality rate dropped by 384.4 deaths. Since then, the most recent recorded data in 2015 states that, on average, the child mortality rate is only 27.2. For 128 years, the life expectancy for Indonesia's population was plateaued at only 30 years old, and when influenza affected Indonesia, there was a sudden massive drop in the year 1918, where the life expectancy was only 14. But then it bounced back, and soon enough, there was a growth in the expectancy when the Communist Party started in Indonesia. As it was just increasing, the expectancy again made a sudden drop when the Japanese invaded Indonesia during the World War II. But after Indonesia became independent, the life expectancy jumped back to 37 years old and had rapidly increased over the years, as two most recent data showed that in 2015 the life expectancy was 71.1 years old. Population distribution. Indonesia has the total population of 264,179,427, and with the 17,000 islands Indonesia have, the country's density is not too high. But West Java is known to be the most dense out of all Indonesia, since it is where the capital city is found and is most urban. While in the east of Irian Jaya is least dense, as it is not developed as the rest of Indonesia yet. But in total, Indonesia's density stands at 139 people per kilometer squared. One of the physical factors that could have affected the population distribution is relief. As seen on the map on the left, the population is very dense on Java Island, while Irian Jaya has the most sparse population. Comparing this to the relief map, it can be seen that there are more mountains and highlands in Irian Jaya, while in Java there are many flatlands, and the highest land that goes is 500 meters. In conclusion, possibly more people just prefer to live where there is flat land, making transportation easier. On the other hand, a human factor that could affect the population distribution in the country is education. As seen on the top right image, that is one of the many universities of the Java Island, while on the bottom right is one of the many schools in Irian Jaya. As the obvious points are, the facilities in Java is much better as they have proper buildings which Some are multi-stories, while in Indonesia they have to split two classes using a row of bamboos. So there's no doubt if people move from Indonesia to Java just for the education, because there are big differences in the quality of the schools. Back in the 1960s, the life expectancy was low, as can be seen at the top of the pyramid that no one really lived over 80 years old. And the child mortality rate can be seen as high because the number of people started to decrease drastically when the number reached around the age of 14. The working age number was also really low, and there weren't much people who got to live the senior life after the working age. This pyramid had a very low life expectancy. In 2010, the population increased and the working age had increased way more than the pyramid from 1960. In the pyramid, it can be seen that in just 50 years, the birth rate has increased again by 30 million in just 50 years. The working age population this time had expanded rapidly and had about the same number as the dependency age population. The pyramid also shows the increase in life expectancy, where people live up to 100 years of age. Although it is very rare, but there is now a possibility, rather than 1960 pyramid, where there were no one who lived to over 80 years old. The pyramid showed that living in Indonesia's life expectancy and how it reached the age of 60 is much more common. In prediction, Indonesia's life expectancy is going to increase massively along with the population by 2060. There will be high CDR with high life expectancy. The working age population will have a big store, meaning more of the dependency age group can rely on the working age group, helping them increase their life expectancy. The amount of working age population and the younger dependency population is leveling out, which means the dependency population's life expectancy will go on for a working age population. It is also much more common to live through the 80 years of age, and the possibility of living 90 years old has gone up. Overall, in 2060, it is predicted that the life expectancy will be very high and the population will increase too. The dependency ratio at the moment is 66.5% working age population and 27.3% of younger dependency age population and 6.1% of older dependency age population. Indonesia is on the third stage of demographic transition model because the death rate in Indonesia has gone down and is low, but the birth rate is still very high, even though it is decreasing. So for example, right now Indonesia's birth rate is at 18.7, while the death rate is at 7.1. The population plan is to stick to the motto that has been around in Indonesia for some time now. 2 is enough. The stricter Indonesia can be with this motto, the faster the population's birth rate can decrease, helping the country to move forward to the fourth stage in the demographic transition model. Something we could also work on is to maintain the child mortality rate as it is at the perfect number of 27.2. But if we lower that even more to maybe 10 or 15, our population could really benefit from increasing birth rate. This could also help maintain the fertility rate of 2.28 children, because by these children staying alive, there is no need of getting another child, and by doing so, the fertility rate can even drop down to 2 children per woman. While maintaining the mortality rate and the fertility rate, the dependency ratio should also be maintained too, where there is always more of the working age than the dependency age. By following this plan, it will help manage the population of Indonesia. Here are the citations.